Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, let's talk about propaganda and false reporting, or how do you want to call it, not even misinformation. I think this is disinformation. But hey, what do you want? It's time of war, people lie, people do whatever they want. So this article comes from the New Voice of Ukraine from November 9th, 2022. And this is the title. Russia probably lost half its tanks in war against Ukraine, says US official. Now please pay attention. Maybe the US official will have a name and he's an idiot. Okay? Idiot. So let's see. Russia has probably lost half its main battle tanks and used up most of its precision-guided weapons in a war that has become a massive strategic failure, quote unquote, for the Kremlin. A senior Pentagon official has said, so he's a senior, that means he's a guy who knows shit, okay? Alright, man. US news channel CNN quoted Pentagon's Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Colin Kahl, K-A-H-L. Kahl. Now remember this name, never forget it. Colin Kahl. He is an idiot. As saying on November 8th that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has bogged down more than 80% of the Russians' land forces in Ukraine. Okay, alright. He bogged down more than 80% of Russians' land forces in Ukraine. I doubt that. But anyway, he knows what he's saying, right? And I'm quoting again. Putin has failed, Kahl told a group of reporters during an event held by George Washington University's Project for Media and National Security. Kahl said Russia has suffered, and I'm quoting, tens of thousands of casualties, end quote, since the war began in February, which is, quote unquote, orders of magnitude, quote unquote, more than the Soviet Union suffered in Afghanistan. Yeah, boy, but in Afghanistan he fought certain kind of troops and certain kind of help. Here they find about 30 countries. NATO, United States, and I say NATO, United States because NATO kind of is some more weasels over there. So yeah, it's different story. And I'm quoting. They've spent down a majority of their precision-guided munitions in Ukraine, and the sanctions and export controls will make it very difficult for them to rebuild their military to what it looked like before the war. Well, why don't you give us numbers? Nothing wrong with give us numbers, but you build credibility. So if you would say they spent down a majority of their precision-guided munitions, you should tell us this. They had 5 before they started the war, and they used 4. Therefore, they have 1 more. I mean, that would build credibility, or will allow us to call you liar. Because that's why you don't give numbers, because you don't have numbers. Because otherwise you would use the numbers. But you just majority, minority, almost, never, things like this. No. Tell us a number. If you are able to approximate and assess that they used almost all, right? Then a majority, then you should be able to tell us what's the majority. If you say majority, you should know how much they used and how much they had at the beginning. Tell me. All right, move on. According to Kahl, Putin went into this war trying to extinguish Ukraine as an independent, sovereign, democratic country. Yeah, but now it's going to be independent under your boot, right? Right? It's the same thing as the Second World War. Well, why should Germany have sphere of influence and conquer and dictate in Europe? Now we have 2. We have Soviet Union, the communists, which and the United States. How about that? So it's not about having more of standards. It's just replacing the Master Tom with Master James. Okay, but Master James was stronger than Master Tom, so kicked out Master Tom. So Master James now is in charge. So if Russia would have not been able to do what Kahl states, which is erase and destroy the identity, sovereignty and freedom, you will do that if Russia moves out. But that's not going to happen. And then he says here, Oh, sovereign democratic country. Hey, Carl, do you remember how did Ukraine get to this point? Through an undemocratic coup d'etat, organized, supported by who? Carl, you say? Huh? Shut your pie hole. All right. He's failed. So when he talks about democracy, you should look in 2014, okay, who a democratic elected government was kicked out with the help of some close to you, Carl. He's failed, and that's not going to change, the official said. Okay, thank you very much. Can you tell me the bingo numbers for the next drawing or something? I would like to know. It seems like you know everything. A sovereign, independent, democratic Ukraine is going to endure. Yes. Okay, bring us some information as well. Now, this guy, the title says right here, that Russia probably lost half its tanks in war against Ukraine. All right, well, if you say so, let's see a little bit how many tanks did Russia have before the invasion. And I'm quoting an article from Forbes, okay? And this, let's see, Forbes, and this what came out, let's see, when did it come out? Well, do I find? Yeah, in March 15th, 2022. So the war just started. And they claim that Russia, it says here that, let me read you from the very nice here. It says, some estimates put the Russian grand total as high as 12,420 tanks and 36,000 other armored vehicles. The IISS estimates Russia has over 10,000 tanks in storage, plus many other vehicles. So, yeah, if you destroyed 5,000 or 6,000, as you say here in Ukraine, the Ukrainians, yes, that's correct. But is that the correct number provided by the Ukrainians or not? 12,000, the Ukrainians claim that they blown up to about 4,000 or so. It's almost half. So yeah, they must be true, right? If the Ukrainians got the right number. And how can you tell they got the right number? You know, I think it's just, and besides, I don't think they blowed up 12,000, half of 12,000 tanks. Let's put in 12. Okay, 6,000 tanks. I don't think they were blown up in 6 months. It's not impossible. I'm not saying that's impossible. I think it's just unlikely. Unlikely. Look how many rockets are reported to be launched, and it's not only rockets blowing those up as well, you know, the tanks and so on. But I think the number is exaggerated. I don't have any evidence to contradict that or to support the claim. But I don't think these guys report the numbers accurately because they have an interest. I don't have any interest. I just get your information and I'm just trying to reason with it or find out this and that and provide some information or knowledge or assessments. But these guys have an interest. The Ukrainians will inflate the number of casualties they inflicted on Russia. They will. And they will obviously deflate their losses. And the same the Russians do. The Russians will say that probably 3 tanks were blown up by the Ukrainians since February 24th. All right? But as I said, when you give me numbers, when you give me, almost all or this, I want to hear you giving me numbers. Otherwise, how can you assess? Half of the country was occupied. Okay, out of what's the country? Where are you? Tell me. Give me some numbers. General stuff. I can, and if the Russians got half of them blown up, too bad for them. Too bad. Now, how many did the Ukrainians have? And obviously, it's going to be about 5 only. It's kind of like the Ukrainians could not have had as many tanks as the Russians. So if the Russians have half blown up, how many did the Ukrainians have blown up? Out of how many? Do you think that Ukraine had 12,000 tanks? I strongly doubt that. I don't think they had half of that. And I don't think the Russians did not do a good job on blowing them up as well. So how many Ukraine has? 0? Anyway, I don't have the numbers, but I'm just trying to use by comparison and contrasting these guys. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.